Hello again. Chris Lee and Chase Robinson here to take a look at Alabama and whether the Crimson Tide still has a realistic path to the college football playoff. We are doing this with the Crimson Tide having two losses in hand, one at Vanderbilt, another one having just happened at Tennessee. But you know what? A lot of people counted Alabama out a year ago after that Texas loss. We know how that ended. This is still a really talented Crimson Tide team that I don't think has seen its best performance yet, Chase.
Yeah, I would agree with you. And good thing Alabama does not have to go to the state of Tennessee to play any more football games this year because they
Right.
hadn't come out well and then in the two this season. So I guess that's good news. But yeah, look, I feel like we haven't seen a complete game yet. I think the closest thing was Wisconsin, and they started out
Yeah.
slow in that game, but I think that may be the most complete game we've seen from Alabama this year. The rest of them, they haven't been able to finish, or there's been issues throughout the game where they just kind of let their guard down. And that was the second quarter against South Carolina. So they went down to Vanderbilt and could never get their way, never really get back up. So, yeah, we just haven't seen a complete game from Alabama yet. And traditionally, they play a lot of their best football in November. And with November around the corner, we'll see if that's true again this year. But just, a little undisciplined so far, penalties. Again, they haven't been able to play a complete game yet.
Let's pull up our graphic where we're going to look at what the computer predictive models have ahead for Alabama in terms of predictions. We're also going to review what Alabama has done because I think this has kind of gotten slept on a little bit, okay? I've got a composite power ranking that's based on points above average. That's what we use here to tell you what the spreads might look like. But it also tells you the strength of the teams Alabama has played. And let's go down this list. The Western Kentucky and South Florida wins aren't going to count for a lot. So we're not going to go into those. But the game at Wisconsin has kind of quietly gotten better. They are number 24 in my composite power rankings this week. That game was on the road. Alabama won that by 32 points. The Crimson Tide have maybe the best win in the country so far, beating Georgia in Tuscaloosa. That counts for a lot. Georgia number 3 in the power rankings. I've got the South Carolina win. Carolina's 21 in the power rankings I've got. I know they're not in the polls. I know they've lost 3 games. That is a product of playing just in an SEC that is brutal week in and week out. So, like if South Carolina's playing in the ACC or the Big 12, that record probably looks a lot different. But the power rankings say that's a top 25 team. So you've got some good wins there already, and even your losses at Vanderbilt. Everybody that's watched Vanderbilt knows they're a good football team. Tennessee is a playoff contender. So I don't see anything in here so far that's absolutely disqualifying in terms of Alabama making the playoffs, depending on what it does ahead.
Yeah, and that Vanderbilt loss, I feel like is the one everybody was pointing to. But as we see Vanderbilt continue to win and play good, this is, I don't know how many ways we could say it, but this is not the traditional Vanderbilt team. Like this, they're totally different. They're a much better team. And so, yeah, you look at the Vandy loss, the Tennessee loss. Yes, you want a shot at the playoffs. 2 losses is maybe all you can have. But Alabama does have some good wins. And again, the Georgia win obviously is a very good win. But as you mentioned, the Wisconsin win, and in which I said I think that's the most complete game we've seen from Alabama, start to finish. That's a much better win now too. The South Carolina win is good too. They're playing good right now, and a dominant win over Oklahoma, and I think they'll rattle off some more wins. And so, this is an Alabama team again. They're still trying to, I think, find themselves and put together a complete game. But the fact that they have won 5 games when they're still trying to find themselves and figure things out, I think that's very promising for the Crimson Tide.
All right, we're going to take a look at the other 5 games and just discuss those. Before we do, reminder, content brought to you here by Betonline. Basketball fans, it's that time of the year again. The NBA is back from opening tip-off to buzzer beaters. BetOnline has you covered with the best odds, biggest promotions, and live in-game betting on all your favorite teams. Hey, the Crimson Tide might be worth putting down a Final Four or national title bet on those guys. They're really good. Anyway, this season, every game matters. BetOnline has every stat, every matchup breakdown, and live odds to bet on during the game. It's not just the NBA. BetOnline has odds on everything from football, MLB playoffs, NHL, to political props. Head to the website today. Get in on all the action with America's most trusted source for online wagering. BetOnline, the game starts here. All right, let's take a look at the remaining games. We start with Missouri. 14.5 feels like a lot of points to spot Missouri, which is what the odds makers did when we put this chart together. Missouri felt like it was starting to play better, but Alabama, it's a game that Alabama's favored to win, I think can win. And again, you get that one. That is another skin on your wall to go with some very nice wins so far.
Yeah, I think being in Tuscaloosa will definitely help Alabama in front of their home crowd. They struggled in a tough environment at Tennessee. And so I think getting this game at home is big for Alabama. But, yeah, I think Alabama can get a win here and go into the bye week saying, kind of taking a deep breath because you're coming off a win against a good Missouri team. There's no way around that. I mean, they're good. They had that comeback win against Auburn. Like, they do some good things. And if Alabama walks away with a win here, I think it's good that the bye week comes before they go into this last little stretch, starting with a tough one in LSU.
Yeah, you're really glad to have the bye before LSU. That is potentially the make or break game. And this has been a weird series. Used to be the road team always won it. I think that's flipped a little bit recently. I know you were surprised when our model spit out Alabama as a 2-point favorite. The computers continue to love Alabama. And again, the lines are usually pretty close to what the models have. So that this is showing Alabama maybe as a small favorite going into LSU.
That surprises me. It really does. Now, I think what happens this weekend will tell a lot, of how that'll go. LSU's got a good one with Texas A&M set up, and Alabama's got Missouri, obviously. And so, a lot could change between now and that game, the first Saturday in November. But the way LSU's playing, I thought they may be favored at home in this one. Last time Alabama went to Baton Rouge was that Brian Kelly electing to go for two and winning that game over Alabama, and just an instant classic of a college football game. And so, this is going to be, like you said, the make or break game for Alabama on the road at LSU. Again, we saw Alabama struggled with that crowd noise. I talked with some folks who were in Knoxville who cover Alabama, and they said it was the loudest that I've heard in Neyland Stadium. Like, it was rocking, and you could tell because Alabama could not, especially at the beginning, and it took them a long time. There's a lot of penalties, and I feel like Milroe couldn't get what he needed to his guys. Like, they struggle with the crowd noise, and guess what? Baton Rouge is going to be rocking that night. So we'll see if Alabama can handle that better. But it is a make or break game. If Alabama loses this one, their chances, I don't think they'll be in the playoff. But if they were to beat LSU, who will probably be highly ranked at that point, I think Alabama's path to the playoff gets much, much better.
Yeah, and spoiler alert, I think they could lose that game and still maybe have a shot. We'll talk about that at the end. Mercer, I'm not even going to get into. Look, if the Mercer game is anything but a win, then we've wasted our time here. At Oklahoma, I think Alabama should win this one big. It's on the road. Oklahoma just cannot move the ball. I cannot see a team that can't move the ball beating Alabama. Now, coordinator change, we'll see what happens between now and then. There's a long time, maybe some health. Maybe it looks different if Oklahoma's still invested at that point. And then finally, Auburn. Hey, throw out the numbers and stuff. We know how that series is gone, but certainly you would favor Alabama to win that game in its ballpark.
Yeah, the fact that it is in Bryant-Denny Stadium in Tuscaloosa, crazy things happen at Jordan-Hare Stadium in Auburn when these two teams play. Alabama plays much better against Auburn when they're at home, and so I think it's good for Alabama to have Auburn in Tuscaloosa. But those two last games are games. I feel like those teams could either be playing with a chip on their shoulder the way their season has gone, or and you hate to see when teams just kind of wave the white flag. Who knows what they'll be doing at that point of the season? But I think those also are winnable games for Alabama. But this is such an interesting season for Alabama, and obviously it's a a new coaching staff, new players, and I think through this first half of the season, we're seeing that. We're seeing players learning coaches and coaches trying to learn players. I mean, you can't just walk into a program if you're a coach or a new player and just immediately know everything and be able to communicate well and be on the same page. No, it takes time, and I think we've been seeing that in the first 7 games of the season, that they're still maybe taking a little longer than you'd like, but they're still trying to get on the same page and get everybody acclimated to this new staff.
All right, Chase, yes or no? Alabama runs the table. It gets in the playoff.
I see it happening. I think they can do that. Again, I think traditionally Alabama plays their best ball in November. We'll see again if that is the case this year, but this team sees, I think, that their back's up against the wall, and I think they're going to play that way. I think they're going to play themselves back into the playoff conversation, and I'll say yes to that question.
Okay, yes, no, or shades of gray. Alabama loses one more game, it gets in the playoff.
I say no.
Okay.
I think that it's too deep. There's too many 2-loss teams, and I think there will be too many 2-loss teams for Alabama to justify being in the playoff. Because then you're talking probably LSU and Texas A&M will be up there. Tennessee may still be up there. Like, is it possible? Maybe, but I don't see it happening. I really don't. What do you think they could?
Well, I threw in shades of gray for a reason, because play along with me here, okay? Let's say that Alabama loses one more game, and let's call it Missouri. Let's, in this wacko world of college football that we live in, let's say they lose to Missouri but win at LSU. The LSU wins a little bit more recent, and again, you're collecting skins. At that point, you've got at Wisconsin, you've got Georgia. I think South Carolina could be a win that people look at and say that was a really nice win by season's end. I think you get either Missouri or LSU. Those are probably nice wins. LSU is probably a better looking win at that point, which is why I say maybe if the loss is to Missouri and not LSU, the chances get better. But even so, I mean, you will have probably beaten Auburn by that point if you're in that discussion. I think it's more likely than not that they're left out. But I don't think it's impossible, because again, you've got to win over Georgia. That, let's say you're comparing these guys to a 1 or 2 loss ACC or Big 12 team. They're not going to have a win like that. They're not going to have faced a schedule week in and week out like that. I don't know. I can't get in the minds of the committee, but I'm telling you, I don't entirely rule it out if it plays out that way.
And that wouldn't surprise me. We have no idea what's going to happen. One, and for the rest of the season for any team, but two, what the committee is going to do in putting 12 teams. Yeah. We have no idea. No clue. This is all new to us. It's hard to even gauge. And so, yeah, I could see that reasoning being possible.
Well, we'll be here for it either way. Best way to get our content, hit that subscribe button. We cover baseball, football, basketball year-round. Caroline.smith at Southeastern14.com for your advertising inquiries. For Chase Robinson, I'm Chris Lee. You've been watching Southeastern 16, presented by Betonline.